We're now turning to some important updates in preventative health, more preventative health information. Bobby Kennedy is making significant changes to the recommended preventative mammogram schedule. And we're also going to cover powerful holistic approaches to depression. So joining us now to break all this down is Razi Ann Berry, founder and publisher of NDNR, the Journal of Applied Natural Medicine. For over 21 years, her journal has been one of the most respected resources in naturopathic and integrative medicine. So Razi, it's great to have you on the show. I think a great place to start is this topic we just ended talking about, cancer. But when you get to be my age, now 44, have had 5 children, every appointment that I go to is trying to push me to get a mammogram. And I'm constantly saying no thanks. And actually, what's interesting is that at the most recent one of these, and I don't even go that much, that's the thing, but one of the most recent appointments, it's like they got ahead of it. They're like, well, I know there's been negative information out there about like harms, it is totally safe. And I'm like, yeah, I'm still not interested. So, I mean, where are we at with what Bobby Kennedy is doing with this, and what are we learning?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to be here, and what an honor to follow Dr. Corey. And I also want to add, what a blessing to have 5 children. I know this would be for a topic for another day, but pregnancy and childbirth and breastfeeding are all very cancer protective. Some haters might say like, oh, I knew somebody that had cancer. We didn't say it cures cancer, but it is cancer protective. So that's always another kind of perk to motherhood as well. But yes, indeed, lots of changes have been happening in this administration. And one of the things is changing the cancer screening guidelines and sort of putting a halt, pausing to update those guidelines until we take a closer look. And the reason for this is because we tend here in the West, and specifically in the US, to have a very fast approach to cancer screening, screening harder, not smarter. And research, and we're talking from high impact journals such as The Lancet and others, show that more screening doesn't always make better outcomes. One example of this, of course, is breast cancer. In the United States, women undergo or are recommended to undergo mammograms every year after 40. However, in Europe, it's every other year after 50, and the outcomes are not better. Moreover, we are also seeing that a large number of women are being sort of overdiagnosed, something called ductal carcinoma in situ, which is a type of cell change that doesn't usually metastasize. And so over a third of those women end up with a mammogram when really they weren't at risk for death from cancer. So I really applaud the administration for wanting to take a deeper look and maybe match more of what's happening in Europe. Another thing about this, though, is that it does use the same type of radiation that's in nuclear radiation. We have studied the impact of radiation in cancer. And we've also looked at a recent study that showed CT scans might be a causative factor in over 100,000 potential new cancers just because of that radiation. And so I really applaud the fact that we're going to slow down and take a look and make sure women are protected from unnecessary procedures, all the risks that come with that, and that we take a proactive approach, but also are more cautious as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And staying on this topic, I mean, of women and maternal things, I guess you could say, antidepressants are more and more targeted to women, even during pregnancy. I saw a post about how antidepressants, though, however, during pregnancy can cause defects. But you know, we also see this antidepressants are targeted to youth. I mean, it just seems like an epidemic of just let's not look at your situation, or acknowledge situational reaction, human emotions. Let's just, we cannot allow you to feel bad. So let's just numb you, and here's your treatment. What are your thoughts on the rise of turning to antidepressants and the potential harm in mothers and children and others?
Well, it's welcomed and it's long overdue. We've been publishing at ndnr.com for a few decades now. One of my favorite articles we ever published is called "Is It Really Depression?" You just mentioned this, is it something situational or is it actually this chemical imbalance? And without even going to the fact that a huge umbrella study showed that the serotonin hypothesis of depression was really debunked, we have to look at the fact that antidepressants are the most prescribed medications in the United States. And these drugs do cause DNA damage. Basically, they are metabolized in the liver, and these metabolites are mutagenic. They do break DNA strands, and this can be harmful at any stage of life, especially during pregnancy or childhood. And so it's really time to slow down and take a look and see, what are we really treating? Serotonin is produced in the gut, but it is not just a mood hormone. It helps with bone formation, blood cells, memory, and even movement. And so we're not just targeting the brain with these drugs. They really are whole body drugs. And we need to pay real attention to the DNA effects of these. Something that a lot of people don't know is that these drugs do have a black box warning. And many are not told. They just go fill up their prescription, pick it up, and they are not told. A black box warning is the strictest, most severe warning that the FDA can issue on a drug. It is one step before taking a drug off the market. Also, anti-anxieties like benzodiazepines, those also all have black box warnings, and we can talk about those in a minute as well. But I do applaud the administration that we're taking a better look at these psychiatric medications, how often they're prescribed, and also the whole issue of being able to deprescribe, tapering them. And I'm also glad to know that doctors will now be reimbursed, not only when they're prescribing, but also helping patients off these. And one thing that I would like to add is that our doctors that we publish in our journal, they publish a lot about the nutrient deficiencies. Most people aren't told about zinc or B vitamins or the different nutrient deficiencies that can happen while being on these drugs or while tapering.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, there the focus on this as a topic under Robert Kennedy Jr. has been interesting. That there's some that say even when they've tried to taper off, it's been like lifelong damage that has been done. So we do need to be taking things like that more seriously. I happen to be thinking about, though, like when we were talking about how oftentimes these things can get prescribed without evaluating the situational reasons that someone might be experiencing depression. Is that there's also this issue of women and hormonal imbalances. Who knows if it's environmental? I mean, there's all sorts of reasons that our hormones are being disrupted, but that is something that this MAHA agenda, I know, tried to at least make it easier for women to address, whereas there was a black
You're
box warning
absolutely
on some of
right.
these hormones for women. Now they've removed those, right?
Yes, absolutely. And this is a little bit of an aside, but we're now finally in the United States talking about titanium dioxide, which is not just in sunscreens, it's also in toothpaste, it's in frostings because of the white color. It's really pervasive in our, junk food supply chain, so to speak. And you are right. Our gut is a hormone factory, and titanium dioxide impairs that hormone production, that neuroendocrine hormone production in the gut. And here's something really interesting. It doesn't only block serotonin and some other satiety and hunger hormones, which are very important to women and men, but it also blocks, guess what, GLP-1. This is the
Mm.
same hormone that drugs like Ozempic and others are trying to mimic. So on one hand, we have this big rush to prescribe GLP-1s, but then we have this substance in our food supply and on sunscreens and in toothpaste that impair our production of GLP-1s, endogenous, naturally occurring GLP-1s. So what I think is important, and why I'm grateful to be here with you today, is talking about these issues, because it's never focused in one area, right? It's the whole body is connected. These drugs that we're talking about, these toxins that we're talking about, they don't impact one pathway. And it's really important to look at the body as a whole, a big picture. Dr. Corey before me touched on this with his talk about minerals and such.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly all related. And you happen to mention titanium dioxide possibly even being in your toothpaste. But another thing that's in a lot of people's toothpaste is fluoride. And that is another thing that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. brought attention to. He made efforts to get, I know, that removed to some degree, but it looks like he's already gotten pushback on that, a federal court overturning the historic fluoride ruling. It seems like he's getting resistance, that they're really trying to keep all this fluoride in the water. Where do you see that going?
Well, talk about my body, my choice, right? Like, we should be able to freely choose how, when, where we choose to take in fluoride. And the fluoride that's put in our water systems has been tested to have, in many locations, to have high amounts of arsenic. And it's not the same fluoride that's even used in toothpaste. It's actually a chemical, like runoff isn't the right word, but it's actually like a byproduct of the fertilizer industry. And so look, it's nothing new that chemical companies, industrial agriculture and stuff need to find a way to dispose of these byproducts. And instead of having to pay hefty amounts to dispose of these byproducts, they look to find a commercial avenue to not only not have to pay for it, but to actually monetize them. And then, of course, now it's basically a subsidy, right? It's like a mandate that we don't get to choose if we want to buy that form of fluoride and use it or not, but it just becomes part of our water system. We're showering in it. Our skin is our largest organ. It's coming in through our skin. And you're absolutely right. It was really wonderful that our administration, and I have plenty of disagreements with the administration, so I don't want anyone to take this as a political statement, but to finally have somebody be able to talk about fluoride, it has been shown to decrease IQ. I mean, that's the last thing that we need right now. We are behind in education. We have a lot of neurodegenerative and learning disorders in our country. And now we're so reliant on AI, which maybe for another episode, there's so many health implications of AI cooling and data technology that impact human health as well. But it's just so interesting that we're in this information age, and yet we're basically mandating in the water something that inhibits how we process information.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you wanted to touch upon benzodiazepines, and since we talked about mammograms can possibly be a threat to actually giving you cancer as opposed to preventing it because of the radiation. What role does benzodiazepines play in the concerns about cancer?
Well, there have been 81 million prescriptions for benzodiazepines just this last year. And a new research came out studying millions of patients, over 2.5 million patients, that there is a 25% increased risk of cancer. 25%. I can't believe this isn't being talked about everywhere. So again, kudos to you for having this conversation. So basically, there is a pathway, there's an enzyme that cancer cells make. It's like an acidic environment. And your body, your immune system has a natural, your immune system will attack a cancer cell. And one way is called ferroptosis. And it's almost like if something rusts. It's just kind of a layman's way to describe it. But these drugs impair that ferroptosis. They impair your body's natural ability to destroy these cancer cells, and it helps the cancer cells live longer. It's like giving a criminal a key to your front door. So these are this is just definitely with the amount of people that are on these, they're on them for off label. Some people, what the research also shows is, I think Medicare, for instance, says you can prescribe them, recommends up to 30 days, but people are on for much, much longer. And again, a lot of these drugs are prescribed for sleep or other things for long term. It's also one of the few drugs that you can actually die while going off tapering. I'm sure there's others that we all kind of know in an intuitive way, but alcohol withdrawal and benzodiazepine withdrawal are very, very serious. You can have life-threatening events and seizures. And so please make sure you go to, qualified integrative medical doctor or naturopathic doctor before you ever try. So please, no one try to go off these drugs on their own. But to be able to talk about this cancer risk is so important.
Absolutely. And then, like you said, we could probably have an entire show on the AI concern, but really what's making the headlines right now is the aggressive need for certain people to try and get these data centers and communities. And you're definitely seeing resistance. I mean, I just saw one of my neighborhood social media apps sign the petition to say no to data centers. So this has really been making headlines. What concerns should we have about data centers going up?
So many. I mean, one that sounds like, oh, maybe it's not a big deal, but is artificial light at night. The glow that comes from these data centers does impact hormonal health. It impacts puberty, it impacts fertility. It impairs your body's synthesis of melatonin. Now, we all know kind of intuitively that you heal more when you sleep. And light disrupts this. And it's not just the sleeping. Melatonin is your body's master antioxidant. And so there have been studies with shift workers, for instance, people like nurses who work the night shift, doctors who work the night shift have increased risks of cancers. And so a lot of our communities now are well lit at night. We're not getting a true dark night. It can also lead to neurodegenerative diseases. But that is one big concern that not a lot of people are talking about. If someone doesn't understand how light can affect biology, think about marijuana growers. They use light to change the amount of certain substances like THC that a plant produces. It changes the hormonal expression of a plant. So that happens with humans, it happens with our pets, it happens with pollinators and birds as well. The other one that is less talked about is called infrasound. And there are a known category of diseases called vibroacoustic diseases. And we see these in like airplane pilots or people who work with large machinery, that this low vibrational hum can cause scarring of tissue such as like blood vessels and arteries. It can cause lung fibrosis and heart hardening as well, or the hardening of the soft tissue. And what is so sinister about this infrasound is the way they measure sound is really meant like, oh, if a neighbor's having a loud party or something, like a block party, they only listen to the loudest sound and they don't listen to these low vibrations. They kind of turn that off. They don't measure that. And these wavelengths are so long, they go through the ground, they can go through a mountain, they can go through concrete, and they go through your body. And they do affect the way your cells vibrate and replicate and divide. And so these are something with this constant hum of these cooling systems plus the generators. And so people report that live near these centers or other types of electrical other generating facilities, is that they feel like irritable. They feel sometimes like they just can't think normally. They have headaches. And so this isn't just something like sound, like a music that you don't like the sound of. It really is affecting your physiology. And that's just on top of course, the chemicals used in the coolants. The water evaporates quickly, and so it concentrates these metals and chemicals, these anti-corrosives, these anti-freeze, these coolants, and that is contaminating the water supply. So it's really so many, and we haven't even talked about the EMF, right? The radiation, which we have Kennedy's administration talking a lot about as well, the effects of the radiation from cell phone towers. It's a different kind of radiation that we talked about with the mammography and the CT scans, but it also changes the way that the cells oscillate. I mean, listen to this. About a decade ago in Israel, Wi-Fi was banned from kindergarten classrooms, and it's severely restricted up through third grade just because a child's body and brain are developing so rapidly during childhood. And so I hope that our country decides to put similar safety precautions.
Yeah, absolutely. Hadn't even thought about that aspect of it. Now we did talk about data centers and their wealth of problems that they can bring, including potential effect on the brain with the sounds. One story I've been seeing all over the place really is this headline about an 80-year-old Alzheimer's patient that showed signs of recovery from mushrooms. And so there's been work in this administration to ease up on access to psychedelics and things. What are you hearing and reading when it comes to this as a potential brain repair mechanism? I mean, that story is really astounding.
There is a lot of promise, and we also at ndnr.com have published quite a bit of doctors who work with this. And I would only recommend doing it under supervision of like a qualified naturopathic or integrative functional medicine doctor. But they do help with synaptogenesis, help regrow brain cells, and it's very promising what we're seeing about how people are having this long lasting. I think that some of the, like from one single dose, that they're seeing prolonged up to 2 weeks, even improvement in depression. So I think it's really exciting. I think nature just provides so much for us because it's biocompatible with who we are, but doesn't mean, just because something's natural doesn't mean that it's completely safe. One thing that I personally am cautious about is what I fear might happen is that this will cause a rush of synthetic analogs instead of just dealing with the fruiting body, the actual mushroom. Maybe I'm being overly cautious, but we see a lot of times, whether it's with hormones or other things, when something is synthetic, that it can cause problems. So I predict a big rush of synthetic analogs after we're seeing this. And, but just, be informed, talk to your trusted integrative or functional or naturopathic doctor. But lots of promise. And I'm really glad that it's going out of the taboo, and we're talking more about these solutions.
Speaking, I mean, you just reminded me of something else I was hearing about. It sounds like we've been seeing a lot of problems with synthetic kratom. Do you have any insight on that?
Well, I think that and that's not an area that I'm really knowledgeable in, but kratom, I believe it's being used, the synthetics is sort of like an alternative to like an opiate, for instance, for pain and stuff, and has high opportunity for addiction. I'm just not a fan of a lot. I mean, some synthetics are really good, but I think what sometimes happens is the marketplace just rushes in to monetize something. That doesn't mean that there are many synthetic drugs that are really good. Ivermectin, we talked about earlier, it can be really powerful. However, I don't really know enough about kratom, and I would be cautious about synthetic versions of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like your NDNR is doing phenomenal work. How is one way that we can continue to follow what you're doing?
Well, we are an open access clinical journal, and that means that it's really doctors sharing case reports. So it's doctor patient outcome, sharing that, because that's really where medicine began, right? Our grandmothers noticing certain things, whether it's like an herb or a chicken soup, helped with a certain ailment. And that's where medicine began as well. Instead of only putting emphasis on these big placebo double blind controlled studies, which are very important. We shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We should look at what's happening between one doctor, one patient at a time, these anecdotal evidences. And so that's what we publish at the Journal of Applied Natural Medicine. So I'd love if you could bookmark ndnr.com, and that can be something you can share with your doctor. You can research all 21 years of our cases. And then you can follow me, Razi Berry, on social media.
And what's the best way to find you on social media?
Let's see, I have a new Instagram account, so you can join me there. I'm also on Facebook at Razi Berry and on X at Razi Berry. And that is my real name. It sounds made up, but my mom really did name me
It's
Razi
such a
Berry.
Great name, Razi Berry. I love it. But is there a story behind that?
My grandmother, she's turning 96 in 2 weeks, and she just thought it would be funny. It was really a joke, but my mom loved it. And here I am. I've survived this far with it. But I'm really congratulations on the show, and I'm really grateful to be here and would be happy to contribute whenever you need.
Yes, we can deep dive into, I mean, there's so many topics that it's kind of hard to, I wanted to give a little taste for everything for the first episode, but we'll be happy to have you back to deep dive on any one thing that you're particularly passionate about at any one particular time. So thank you again so much. It's just fascinating. Love what you're doing.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.